Peace be upon you. Dear attendees, I, Asma Al-Khuzaimi, the host from the Teacher Training Institute, I'm pleased to welcome you all to the 6th Arab Gulf Forum under the title Hybrid Learning, which comes in accordance with the rapid changes that sweeps the world and affects the educational process. We, in the United Arab Emirates, are blessed with wise leadership that has the incredible vision and prospect. So we are honored to welcome our first guest, Mr. Sean Thompson from the Digital Educational Unit in the Ministry of Education, to give us a training workshop under the title Digital Tools for Hybrid Learning. Our guest is a digital educator promoting the effectiveness of technology usage in enhancing students' learning. We are hoping that you participate with your input and questions in the chat feature. We, with the help of our guest, will respond to all of your questions. The attendance link will be placed before the end of the meeting via the chat feature. Mr. Sean, please start your presentation.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. The aims of today's session are to introduce digital tools that can be used for hybrid and distance learning, give practical knowledge and skills using digital tools for hybrid learning, and give practical examples of ways digital tools can be used effectively for hybrid learning. So we are going to cover briefly some of the theory behind it, but I'm aware other sessions are going to cover that in more depth. So we will focus on the tools today. Most of the tools you will probably seen and used. However, there are some functions that you may not be aware of. So we'll take a look at them and you hopefully see how you can use them effectively to enhance your teaching and learning for students. So the first thing we're just going to do is you'll see one of the first tools. It's quite a popular thing at the moment. It's called menteecom. So if you can just scan the QR code and then it will take you to menteecom, and I will get the screen up and I'll explain what you need to do. So you can scan the QR code or just type in menteecom. So I'll just give you a few seconds to scan the QR code. If you just want to use the direct website, you'll see that in a second. Okay, so if you've used the QR code, hopefully you've got to menteecom. As you can see at the top of my screen now, we have www.menteecom, so you can type that in as well. And then you simply use the code at the top, 8879008, to access this slide. And what I want you to do is just, in a couple of words, write what you think hybrid learning is. This can be anything positive about hybrid learning, what hybrid learning actually is compared to other types of learning. Just a couple of words and it will create a word cloud as an interactive slide. So we have blended learning. Combined learning, multiple, mixed, blended. Great. Okay, that's fantastic. So you can see how this tool works, and we'll look a little bit more in depth at it later on. But it's a really good tool to create interaction when there is distance involved, and obviously you can use it in a classroom, providing the link and the code. Obviously, with a class, there will be, maybe 30 students. So you won't get as much feedback as this, so the words will stay larger, but it's a really good tool to use for interaction and engagement. you can, as a teacher, also then export this and keep it as evidence. So as we can see, there's a lot of blended, mixed learning, distance, combination, things like that, which is great. So just one thing that I wanted to pick up on is hybrid learning and blended learning are two different things. And the main difference is blended learning is a combination of online learning and in classroom as two separate things. And hybrid learning is it can be delivered synchronously, whether it's online or in the classroom. And you plan it, so there can be offline elements, but it's planned and delivered as one type of learning. Okay, so we'll just go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so hybrid learning is an educational model where some students attend class in person while others join the class virtually from home at the same time. Educators teach remote and in-person students at the same time using tools like video conferencing tools like Microsoft Teams that we're using today. In some cases, hybrid classes include asynchronous learning elements like online exercises and pre-recorded video instruction to support face-to-face classroom sessions. So in that way, it is similar to blended learning, but anything that is asynchronous and pre-recorded should fit in and blend in with the synchronous learning that is classroom based, whether that's physically in the classroom or you're delivering it via video conferencing tools. Okay, so how to create a successful hybrid learning environment. So set your term goals. So with hybrid learning, you need to be aware of what your goals are throughout the term so that you can then move on and map your curriculum. So you need to then figure out what it is you need to cover in the term and the milestones per week. I'm aware that some subjects have this mapped out for you already, so you can look at these and just then move on to plan further. Determine which aspects of the curriculum and which activities are better to be taught in person, as in teacher delivered, offline, and then determine which portions of the content can be delivered online. And we'll obviously show some of the tools that can help with both of these. You then need to choose the digital tools. So the important part is you choose the tools to fit the content. You don't want to force the content to fit the digital tools. If you do that, it's then counterproductive. The tools, digital tools, need to enhance learning, so we fit the tool to the content. You then need to create and source your content, okay? So this may be, you may need to record videos if you're delivering certain parts online, or there may be videos out there that you can use that are relevant, and you'll see how some of the tools that we're going to talk through today can help with that. You then need to test your plan out. Okay, so any plan that you make needs to be flexible. You know, test it in the first week. If there's things that need to be changed and tweaked, it's absolutely fine. Just be aware of these, reflect on the first week, and make any changes that are needed. And equally, I'm here as part of the digital education unit to help with any aspects of this. So you can always contact me. I will give my email address at the end of this presentation. Okay, so what digital tools do I use? You may have some that you already use, and you may use some of the ones that I'm going to show today. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to focus on the tools and ways in which you can use them. So at this point, you need to imagine that you've planned out, you've set your goals, you've planned out and mapped your curriculum, and we're at the point where we need to decide what tools we want to use. As I mentioned, it's important to choose the correct tool to match the content, not the other way around. With hybrid learning, you get the best of both worlds. So you're able to pick and choose which portions you deliver online and which you deliver offline. So you can really match the tools to the curriculum. Okay, so we took a look at Mentimeter and just one particular aspect of Mentimeter, and that was the word cloud. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen again. And you can see the word cloud again. And if we just come out of the actual presentation, you can see that we have type, content, customize. So Mentimeter.com is where you create these slides, and Menti.com is where the students would go to access the slides. So you can see the word cloud in the middle here. But there are other types of slides that you can put in there. So you can create an interactive slide deck that is better than just using, say, PowerPoint. So you can deliver theory and couple this with something like Microsoft Teams to deliver your theory and make it interactive at various stages. So we have, you can put in multiple choice slides, the word cloud, you can put in open-ended questions, scales, so they give their own feedback in terms of a scaling system. They can rank certain options. You can have a Q&A, and you can insert quiz questions, so multiple choice or a typing question. At the moment, it won't let me select these because people are still inputting into the word cloud at the moment. There are other slides as well, so heading, paragraph, bullet points, images, video, big, which is just big lettering. You can put quotes in, numbers, and then there are advanced questions. So I won't go through all of these individually. It is a matter of you taking a look at this and just seeing, when you've planned out your goals and mapped your curriculum, just how this would fit with your subject. But the idea is that you can create, a slide deck with an introduction. You can put your objectives in there, have the word cloud as your introduction. You can then cover some theory. You can then put a question in for assessment, cover a bit more theory, then add another question, and make your presentation, if you want to deliver in that way, more interactive. So hopefully you can see how that can be beneficial in terms of engaging students through online learning. Okay, so that is Mentimeter.com. We'll now move on to Microsoft Forms. So most of you, I would say, have used Microsoft Forms. It's a very popular tool and that we get access to through Office 365. But what I would say is that it is underutilized. So you can just deliver basic questions. However, in terms of differentiation and things like that, there are features on there that you can spend a bit of time planning and really deliver some good assessments on there. So let me just pop back onto Forms. Okay, so I have this Microsoft form that I've created. So you can see there is a basic true or false question, but underneath the answers, you can give some comments. So this is where you as a teacher can give some comments back to your students, whether it's some hints or just general feedback. And I would say whether it's true or false, just add some feedback in there. And what else you can do is, if we just look at the bottom here, you get the 3 dots. We can click more settings and excuse me, we have add branching. So what this does is allows you to guide your students through the quiz. So if the students get the question correct, which question 1, the correct answer is false, you can then choose where it directs them to for the next question. And equally, if they get it wrong, you can direct them to a question. So in terms of differentiation, if you feel that the student who gets question 1 wrong needs to see another question just worded differently, you can direct them towards that. So you'll never have students where they just get questions wrong and it's demoralizing. You can really create a quiz where you guide them through, so that if they get one question wrong, you can still guide them and give them hints or tips and help them to understand that knowledge. So obviously it does take a bit of planning in terms of your assessments and how you word your questions. But if you spend just a little bit of extra time on this, then it really can be beneficial for the students. And you as a teacher gives you better feedback, better data to analyze and look at what areas of need there are. Equally, you can see question 2 here. This has a picture in with a passage. So you can put that in there and have a reading question where students then type out their answers, or it can just be a simple true or false. So in terms of English language lessons, you can put in the passages in there. You don't have to type the whole passage out, you can just put a picture. And another type of question, so if I actually click in this, click the 3 dots again, it's the add file. So here, this allows students to upload a file. So for older students specifically, if you've got questions or assessments that you want to do, and maybe LMS doesn't quite do what you need it to, you can post a question here, and then students can upload their own file. And this should go directly into your OneDrive. So any files that they sent will go directly to your OneDrive. You can then access them and read them. You can set how many files they can upload and the size of the files. And obviously click your basic, which required, not required, which is what most people already know. So the 3 main things there are the branching tool, which is really good in terms of differentiation, and the uploading a file or picture into a question, and uploading a file from a student point of view. So this is obviously more for assessment, but you can link this in with your Microsoft Teams lesson if you're presenting through that, or as we'll look later, any lessons that you deliver through LMS. So again, you could do this synchronously or asynchronously. It could work both ways. So if any students miss a synchronous lesson, you can put this into LMS and they will still have the opportunity to use and complete this. Okay, so if you just want to use this QR code, you'll be able to access just the quiz that I created. So you can just use this QR code, scan it, it'll take you to the quiz that I created. And if you just want to answer the questions, answer a few of them wrong, a few of them right, and just see how it will guide you through. Obviously, there is only 4 questions, so there is only a certain amount of paths you can take, but hopefully you can see from a student's point of view how it would work. And I'll just give a couple of minutes for anyone that wants to use that QR code to just see how the quiz looks from a student point of view. Okay, so I'll just give an opportunity now in the Q&A section. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to ask them now. And I'll give a few more opportunities a bit later as well after some of the other tools. So if you've got any questions, feel free to ask them now. So I do apologize. I do have to knock the screen sharing off to see the questions that are coming through. I can't just leave the screen shared. So I do apologize. So I'll just take the screen sharing off now. Okay, so I've just got a question here about how do you generate a QR code? So this is something that I wasn't going to cover in the session. I do when I'm supporting teachers, but there's a website called qrstuff.com that you can post. You can copy and paste any URL links and create QR codes on there. So that is qrstuff.com. And that is a really useful way to allow students to access information. So you can create links to your OneDrive, Dropbox, anything like that. It's really useful. So I have another question here. Will Neopod be one of the tools that we have access to? As far as I'm aware, Neopod isn't recommended by the ministry. We need to use the LMS that we have. And I'll cover just some different things you can do later on for LMS. So how do we engage students and give individual attention when hybrid teaching? So in terms of engagement, it's just about planning and using some of the tools that I'm showing you now and getting the students to engage with you, whether it's using something like mentimeter.com or any of the other ways that I'm going to show you. And in terms of individual attention, it really depends on how individual you need it to be. There are some other tools out there where you can really offer some one-to-one support individually to any students that need that. I'm more than willing and happy to discuss that if anyone wants to contact me after the session. Are you going to get the PowerPoint for this training? There's not much use in sending this PowerPoint because it just is titles and logos, but any information that is within this, I can turn it into something that's usable and we can certainly send it out there to you. Again, if anyone wants to contact me directly, you'll have my email at the end of today, and I'm more than willing to happy to share any information. Online tools are great, but are students in the classroom being taught online or in person? So students in the classroom will be taught in person. However, if you have access to laptops or computers, desktops, then you can plan your lessons so that you are teaching in person as well as online. So it depends what you have access to in your school and the type of activities you're delivering. So you need to figure out which is the best way for you when you're at the planning stage. So, you know, Microsoft Forms you can use in the classroom with the students as an assessment tool. But it really is up to what structure you have within your school. You know, you can do simple hybrid learning where, similar to what I'm doing now, I have the camera open, and if they can see the whiteboard in the class, you can obviously write on the whiteboard so that students can see online via the camera and students in the classroom can see as well. So that is obviously a basic way without using any digital tools other than just video conferencing. So it really is up to you how you want to plan that. Okay. So question 3 is about, so yeah, the Microsoft form, because I've uploaded asking for uploading of a poster, it won't let you complete your answers. So obviously as a teacher, that's just something to be aware of. So is this a resource we must use? So anything that I'm showing you today, it isn't a matter of you have to use it. I'm just showing you some useful tools that are existing, that some of them teachers already use, and they can be used in different ways to enhance the learning, but it's not a matter of you have to use them. It's very much what your subject is and how you can use them in different ways. Okay. So are these appropriate for KG students, or do we have options? So there are some other tools out there that may be better suited for younger students. And a couple of the ones that I'm going to show you next may be useful as well. But obviously with younger students, the whole accessing of the information does have to be a lot simpler. But again, I won't go into that too much. If anyone wants to contact me privately, you're more than welcome to, and I can show you some other tools that would be useful. As far as I'm aware, this session isn't being recorded. So what if a student can't scan a QR code? So I've done this as a QR code, simply just rather than sharing, because in terms of the chat function, I can't send to all. So you don't have to use QR codes. You can just give them a direct link. That's no problem. One thing to add with branching, you do need, the students do have to log in. So with some quizzes and forms, you can create them so they don't have to log in, but with the branching tool, they have to log in with their ministry accounts. Could you please repeat the difference between hybrid and blended learning? So the main difference, just to keep it simple, is hybrid learning is delivered synchronously, whether it is online or in classroom. Blended learning is a mixture of offline and online, so in classroom and online, but separate. So students do the same work in the classroom and then they do online work separately, whereas you will be delivering to students in the class and online at the same time. However, hybrid learning does have some online elements in terms of asynchronous as well, if you need. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. So I will need to just carry on now. Okay, so this may be a new tool for most people. This is EdPuzzle. Okay, so EdPuzzle is an easy to use platform, and it's for video-based learning. So you can create video learning, and within the videos, you can embed questions and assessments or comments. So if a video is covering a certain part of theory, you can then insert a question at whatever point you want. So within the videos, you can really test the students at each point by embedding any questions, or if there's any hints, tips and comments, you can put them in as well. And you can create them in a way where students don't just watch them, they have to watch the videos and answer the questions to progress. So they can't just skip through any questions, they have to answer them. Within EdPuzzle, I'm not going to show you the website because there's a lot of different things to show you. So I would recommend just going on there and having a look. And even if you just use a video in different lessons, one video, once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, that's absolutely fine. It is really useful because you can make that video interactive in terms of engagement and assessment. There is a whole library on EdPuzzle, so you don't have to create your own videos. There's a whole library on there with existing videos, which you can reuse for your own classes. EdPuzzle is free. However, obviously it is restricted in terms of the free functions that there are. But I've used this with some of the ministry students, and they've really enjoyed it. And I think just using it every so often is really helpful. Don't overuse it. So just while we're on video learning, obviously you can create your own videos. So if there is something specific that you need to cover, then it's really good to create your own videos, have yourself as a teacher. So if there's any asynchronous online learning you want to deliver through LMS, it's really useful to make a video and have yourself in a box on the bottom right corner, similar to Microsoft Teams, and record yourself delivering it, which is really important in terms of student engagement. Okay, we're back again. So in terms of creating videos for yourself, if I just go on to one moment. Okay, so there are 2 different things that I'm going to show. I do apologize. For some reason, it's not allowing me to share my screen. Okay, so I do apologize. Microsoft Teams isn't allowing me to share my screen now. So one of the other things that you can use is a Google Chrome extension, which is called Screencastify. So this allows you to easily make videos of yourself. So you can share your desktop and explain theory to students and have yourself talking, and they can see you through the webcam. And it will allow you to make, for the free version, up to 5-minute long videos. So that obviously I wouldn't recommend making any longer videos than that anyway, in terms of engagement and attention. But it's really easy. You just install it as your Chrome on your Chrome web browser, and then any videos get connected straight to your Gmail account, so they get saved automatically in there. So it's just a really useful tool to make some quick videos and share your desktop. So if you have a picture or a document that you want to explain, you can do that and create a quick video for any asynchronous learning. Equally, any PowerPoints, you can create PowerPoints using when you click on slideshow in your PowerPoint, you can click record slideshow, and then click record from current slide or from beginning. And then there are options at the bottom where you can open your camera and open your mic to then record yourself narrating over each slide. So they're just two very easy, quick ways using existing materials that you have, i.e. your PowerPoint, where you can explain over the top of them. You can then export that as a video and upload that to LMS. So unfortunately, I have got an example of some of the things that I've done on LMS, but it's not letting me share my screen. Okay, so I'll just have to talk through the LMS lesson. So as I've said before, just use as much of the existing functions and tools that you know and you have, just use them in different ways. So I have an LMS lesson open here, and the first activity, I've used menteecom. So I've inserted the link and the description, just telling the students what they need to do. So they'll then click on menteecom, the link, and answer the questions. Obviously, as an in-class exercise, you'd then need to give them the code as well. I've then moved on and I've inserted a video which has myself in the bottom right talking, so students can see me as a teacher instructing them asynchronously. And I've just taken a portion of the PowerPoint to explain one aspect of the theory. I've then moved on within LMS. I've then added a quiz to give some assessment, and then a discussion, and then another video which explains a different aspect of the theory. And then I've added in at the end a link to a Microsoft Forms quiz with the branching that I've created. So even with LMS, within LMS, I've created a lesson using some of the tools, i.e. I've used menteecom, I've created some videos using PowerPoint. I've then used the functions within LMS to create a quiz and a discussion to just get some feedback from the students. And again, a video with PowerPoint and a quiz that is then taking them out of LMS into Microsoft Forms. So obviously within that lesson, there's quite a few different things. So I wouldn't recommend to use too many tools in one lesson, but it's just to give you an idea. And unfortunately, I can't show you it. So what I will do now is I will just open it up to you guys to ask any questions that I can answer for you here. So I do apologize that the screen isn't sharing. And what I will do in the chat function is I will put my email address in there, so that if anyone wishes to contact me, you are more than welcome to, and I'll help with any specific questions that you have. So I've just put my email address in there, and any questions, feel free to ask them now. So we do have one there from earlier. Are there any fees for using Mentimeter? So Mentimeter is free. However, obviously with everything, there's an upgraded paid version. So I know I've created a slide deck for a quiz, and it would only let me, with the free account, put 6 interactive slides in. So I presume you could put 6 total. So you could put a quiz, you could put the word cloud, you could put various different slides in interactive, but only 6 per lesson, per presentation. So are there any more questions? So I'll just scroll up. So I've got one here. How will hybrid learning be implemented in the schools? Will students come in groups? So I would recommend just contacting your lead teacher and asking them how it's going to be implemented in your particular school. So a list of digital tools in this presentation. So I'll put a list in now. For you all to see. So even just some of the ones that I've just spoken about, sort of PowerPoint for videos, Screencastify, and then forms with branching. Okay, I'll just pop back to the questions. So if I'm using something like Mentimeter, I would be using it with the students sitting in front of me and also with the students at home. Yes, so something like Mentimeter, if you have a word cloud, for example, as a warm-up, you could have your projector projecting onto the whiteboard or wherever it's projecting onto, and students who are online can obviously interact through it that way. And you as a teacher can interact with the students in the classroom and write on the board as well. So obviously it will project the feedback from the online students, and then you as a teacher can write the in-classroom students feedback and answers on the whiteboard as well. So you have the projection and your writing. But if the students have a laptop or have a device that they can interact with using the same code, that's absolutely fine as well. So even though you're using a digital tool, for the students in the classroom, you can also just use your own pens to write on the whiteboard. It really is up to you how you want to deliver something like that. And in terms of structure of the tools and devices that you have. So there's a lot of questions about attendance. They'll be put at there'll be a link at the end. Is hybrid learning time consuming? So in terms of time, delivering a lesson, it should be no more time consuming. And realistically, the planning is no more time consuming either. You just have to make sure you plan it in a different way. So think about how you're going to deliver it. Obviously, if you've got a class in front of you, you'll deliver your content in one way. However, with hybrid learning, you have to think about how you're going to deliver it, what you're going to use. So if you're going to use something like Microsoft Forms, how are the students in the class going to access it? And how are the students at home going to access it? Is it the same way? If it is, it's easy. If they've all got devices, you can do it all in one way. And equally, like I've just mentioned about Mentimeter, if they're using a word cloud, you can then deliver that to the students online and just interact with the students in person, talking to the students in the classroom to get their feedback, which you then write on the board. So it really is just planning and thinking about it. It isn't any more time consuming. Okay, are there any more questions? So how can we handle the Q&A session in hybrid learning effectively? So again, if you want to use something like Mentimeter, you can gain that feedback. Or if you want to use Microsoft Forms, you can gain that feedback. In terms of interaction with Q&A, obviously, depending on your students, the age, it totally depends on how you would deal with that. I would plan into my lesson certain times for Q&A. So whether that's using the chat function on Microsoft Teams, or whether you have a slide within Mentimeter that allows for that Q&A, because there is a Q&A slide, or whether you just give instructions on, okay, so use the raise hand feature. So in your lessons, there's a raise hand feature in your lesson, which gives you as a teacher a notification to say a student wants to talk. You can then allow them to unmute their mic to ask the question. So there's a few different ways that you can manage that. So are these forms safe enough for our students? So in terms of safety, as long as you're creating them using appropriate language and age appropriate, they should be absolutely fine. Okay. So since we'll be delivering lessons online and in class at the same time, will the children online have cameras on? Do the teachers need cameras on too whilst teaching in class? So I would always say, as a teacher, have the camera on, because that gives you that presence, even though you may be online, and it gives that face-to-face. In terms of students, that is something you need to speak to with your principals. So any special apps or websites for special education students. So I'm aware during the Gulf Forum there is a session specifically for this. So I would say join that session. And if you've got any questions afterwards, feel free to contact me. And I do have some ideas and things that you can use to help students. Okay. So please give a quick review of branching questions for differentiation. So unfortunately, I can't share my screen, otherwise I would show you again. So in terms of scanning QR codes, if you do want to use them, iPhones or iPads, you just hold the camera up to them, and with the camera app open, it will automatically scan them, and you just click the link. The link will come up at the top. If you have Android devices, then you need to have an app for that. But again, you don't have to use QR codes. I was just trying to use that for ease today. Okay, so last term we were overloaded with prep work that took all day. Now we're in school. How can we manage all this prep work, deliver a lesson in class and deliver a lesson online? And we have behavior issues in class and online problems such as talking non-stop. Okay, so I would say keep it simple. Don't use too many tools. Use ones that you know can be effective and that will work, and just keep things simple. You don't have to be using 3, 4, 5 digital tools. Just stick to Microsoft Teams and maybe use one or another throughout your lessons. So like Mentimeter, you don't have to then use Mentimeter and PowerPoint, just use Mentimeter. Try and create that engagement so that students are interested. And in terms of you're not being asked to deliver a lesson in class and deliver a lesson online. It is one thing. It is one lesson. That is the key. And you have to plan that lesson so that it is just one lesson. That is what hybrid learning is. It shouldn't be 2 different lessons because that is blended learning. So you really just have to think about it. And there shouldn't be too much prep work, really. It's just about thinking about what you're doing, when you're doing it, and how you're going to do it and achieve what you need. And again, if you're worried about any behavior management issues, then speak to your principals, team leaders, lead teachers, sorry, and just make sure that you plan these things into your lesson. So if you need to interact with students, like I mentioned earlier, use the chat function. If you don't think that unmuting the mic is a possibility, use the chat function or the raise hand. Just really manage that and plan that into your lesson. And then that will minimize any disruption that there may be. But again, just keep things simple and just make sure you plan it, your delivery, so that you understand what you're doing, when you're doing it, and how you're going to do that. Okay, are there any more questions? I'm just scrolling down to the bottom.
Mr. Sean Thompson, thank you very much for your valuable time and presentation.
Thank you.
Before we come to the end of this meeting, I'll just take 2 more questions because Mr. Sean was very kind to answer a couple of questions so far. So there's the question, one of the teachers is asking, do you have an example of a successful experience for hybrid learning that you can share with them, or they can get it from you in a link or a video?
So like a video example?
Yes.
I don't have anything like that at the moment.
Okay.
But there are examples out there. So if you just search them on Google, there are examples that will come up if you just Google example of hybrid learning. One thing that I would add is that some of the examples that are out there, it is just simply having a camera open and they're delivering a lesson with their camera open for distance learning and to students in the classroom. So that is a very basic version of hybrid learning. So I would say to add things in there as well, such as some of the tools that I've used to enhance the learning engagement and create a bit more of an interactive environment.
Okay, so thank you very much again for your presentation and your valuable time. As to our teachers, we hope that you gained the knowledge and potentially able to apply it in the field of education. Finally, I would like to thank you all for your presence and interaction and hope that you stay with us for our next meeting, in which Professor Lee Akwa from the University of from the Changpuk National University from South Korea will be presenting a workshop under the title Educational Gap After COVID-19. Thank you very much again, Mr. Sean Thompson.
Thank you.